Well, you mentioned Premier League TV rights and how that contributes to to the money that's going to the Premier League clubs. So today, trying to watch this Manchester City match was my first experience with the YouTube TV membership that I began. I think I'm technically still in the trial period, but that I began last week after not being able to watch the Bournemouth match. I said, okay, never again. YouTube TV. And Manchester City, I followed Arsenal. So in theory, assuming this works right, and YouTube is generally pretty good with their technology, Google and YouTube. It's supposed to record every Arsenal match for me. That is televised. Obviously, we'll talk later about Newcastle's Peacock only, and fine. Obviously, I'll go to Peacock for that one. But so every televised Arsenal match, I should be able to watch. So I launched the YouTube app to try and do so and clicked on it. And it was great. Like no exposure to spoilers. It was right there on my list. It was very easy. And overall, I'm happy with it. And then I tried to skip forward, 10 seconds, 20 seconds past the commercial that was wrapping up before the game, which again, I don't generally deal with because I pay for ad-free Peacock. Going to skip that and it froze and locked up. And no matter how many times I tried, I couldn't get it to play. So I figured, okay, well, it's getting late. I need to watch this. We're going to be recording soon. I go to Peacock. And thankfully, in a way, Peacock was actually acting the same way. So it was actually something had gotten hosed on the Apple TV itself. I restarted it, and I'll erase that from my ledger when it comes to evaluating YouTube TV. That looks to not be its fault. But so I watched the first half in YouTube TV, and curious for a quality comparison because it's telling me, so it lets you pick which quality you're watching it at, and it defaulted to 1080p 60, so 1080 lines of resolution, 60 frames per second, but it also called it 1080p 60. I think enhanced was the word that came after it. So they're doing some kind of processing in theory to make it look even better. I was curious, was it a notable difference? I watched the second half in Peacock because this match being on NBC was also on Peacock. And honestly, I still feel like Peacock just looked a little bit sharper, a little bit better. I was a little bit happier with how that looked. So when given both options, I probably will still go to Peacock, or I'll maybe try doing the Bake Off again next time and see if I come away with the same impression. But so that was how I watched this ultimately gut-wrenching, disappointing match.
Yeah, I feel like for all that trouble, you almost didn't want to. For all that trouble, you deserve better. Yeah. This one was tough because I have to say, as positive as I was just talking about the sporting game, I actually thought we played pretty well overall. It's hard for me to walk away from this game and come to the obvious conclusion that Manchester City is better than Arsenal. I just can't say that on the course of this game, even though obviously in the end, they ultimately put they put the 2 goals past us and we got the one. This was an interesting one. I do think, I walked into this game with a sense that tactically it was very much like the sporting game. They needed to score. They needed a win. A draw was not a bad result from our perspective. Mm-hmm. And certainly in the first half, I sort of came away with the feeling that we were playing the game we wanted. We're okay mucking it up. We're okay taking our time. Did they generate a couple good looks? Yes, but they also had a couple good looks that came to nothing largely. And so it just. This one was tough. This one was tough, and I'll be honest, I'm just getting a little sick and tired of these guys. I really am.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to begin with, in the 4th minute of play, you had that one boneheaded move. So it was, Gabriel, I think, passed it back to Raya, and then Raya, when he was accepting the pass, I don't know what he was doing, but it bounced from like the goal line to the 6-yard line, and Haaland saw an opportunity and pounced on it, and we were lucky to get that away from him.
Yeah, I thought that was is really just a credit to Haaland. Because Ryan will do that sometimes. The ball comes into him and he plays it out in front of himself. Mm-hmm. Like he's not trapping it and holding it at his feet. He's trying to, because he's playing it in front of himself to prepare to make a pass or kick it upfield. And that's something I think obviously City had been aware of and watched. And the moment he plays that ball, Haaland, makes a break for it, and we dodged a bullet on that one. That was definitely a kind of it was a heart in the throat moment early on. It could have easily really put this game in a very different position. And just a little bit later, they had the one. It took us forever to figure out exactly what had happened, but it ends up hitting the post. And we were able to grab it. Rya's able to grab it and get rid of it.
Right. And I missed it live, so to speak, when I was watching the replay, but I missed it in real time because I was still taking notes about Haaland going after Raya. And I was like, wait, what? So it looked at first like it went in, like that looked like a goal because it was spinning like toward the goal, but I guess it just barely went clear before it went out and behind. But the rolling, I wasn't sure.
It did have a look. If you watch hockey games, a lot of times they'll take a shot in a hockey goal. There's that post in the middle of the net.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll see them, they'll shoot in and it hits it so hard that it comes right back out. And sometimes teams will keep playing because they're like, oh, it hit the post, it didn't go in. And then the team that scored is like, no, I scored. So it looked a little bit like that, but obviously there's no post in the middle of the soccer goal. So I mean, for all the positives they have, if they score early on in this game, I don't want to say if they score in like those first 10 minutes like that, I don't know that it's a nightmare scenario, but it's definitely not a great place for us to be, which of course makes it a little frustrating a few minutes later when they finally do break through.
Yeah, they did. It was, what do you think actually led to that? I mean, obviously Nkapie had the last Arsenal touch before, who was Cherki got it. But what do you think, if you had to attribute blame, like who do you think that lands at the feet of?
I mean, I think some of it falls to Eze, who's kind of loses a duel. And he doesn't lose it. I hesitate to say he loses the duel because that suggests he really put in for it. He kind of he did a lot of good today. He also pulled out of some challenges here and there, which I think led to his ultimately being subbed off. He kind of pulls out of this challenge. The ball gets ahead, and he gets to Cherki. And I mean, he's obviously a very talented young player. He dances through the box. I mean, at that point it gets tough because you can sort of see Saliba Gabriel like make for him, but also kind of pull back because if he makes any contact, he's spilling to the ground and probably picking up a penalty.
Right.
I mean, this is the same guy who was playing keepy uppy in the Carabao Cup, and of course immediately runs over to the Arsenal fans to celebrate in front of. So I'm gonna stop talking about that right now. I can't have on the air.
I didn't notice that. I didn't know that's where the supporter stands were at the Etihad.
It's frustrating because it's a player who's capable of doing that, and you just kind of gave him the space. But again, I think that's also generated from a turnover that didn't have to be a turnover. So that's kind of one of those. It feels like we should have done better. Like the fact by the time he gets the ball at his feet, it's almost. I don't want to say it's too late, but it's kind of too late because he gets ahead of steam, and the only thing you can do is foul, and you're too close to that.
Right. Yeah. So thankfully, though, that one didn't sting for very long before Kai Havertz did what I recall him doing one time last season, where he was just aggressively charging at the keeper or at least the last defender. I don't remember what the case was last season, but boy, did he make a fool of Donnarumma.
And that's like Donnarumma has weaknesses. I mean, he's an excellent shot stopper, partly because he's huge. But I mean, we saw him last year. He was really important to PSG, beating us in that semifinal. But he is not comfortable with the ball at his feet, and Havertz went after him, and it was so key because it came right after their goal. Yeah. And to be able to jump right back into the tie. I'll be honest, once we did that, I'm not going to say I thought we were going to win, but I was like, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do it. Like, it's the kind of play you make when things are going well for you. I mean, again, we talked about the transitioning from the Sporting into this game. That is the kind of play you make when you're feeling good and things go well for you. Like, it's an excellent play from Havertz. And, honestly, it allowed us to settle back into the kind of game I think we wanted to play. I think we ceded possession probably a little more than we wanted to. But for the most part, I think the expectation was we were going to be playing defensively. They were going to be coming at us. And overall, in the first half, I thought we did a decent job limiting their real opportunities. And I was pretty happy with us being at 1-1. The only thing that really bothered me in the first half was the yellow card being picked up by Mosquera, which I'll be honest, I thought was kind of soft for a yellow.
Yeah, it's I'm still calibrating for that. Like when I saw it slowed down, which obviously always makes stuff look worse. It didn't bother me so much necessarily. Like it was, pulling him down by his shoulders. Like I could see it. It didn't really bother me. What did you see that I didn't?
Well, what bothered me about it was, and I've had a lot of negative things to say about Anthony Taylor as a referee over the course of doing the show. I don't have a lot coming out of this game. I thought he certainly let the teams play. Like he was accepting of a pretty decent level of physicality. And I guess in the context of this game and seeing the things that some cases weren't even whistled, much less given cards, for that to be a yellow felt soft and it felt harsh because, I mean, Mosquera's got a really difficult task of dealing with Doku, who's tortured us in Wembley. Right. And, I thought had a pretty good game today as well. But I thought Mosquera did really well with him. But, now he's playing, 70? When did he pick up that? When was that yellow picked up? 40 minutes? Yeah, just shy of 40 minutes. I mean, you're talking about playing almost an hour on a yellow with a guy who can blow by you.
Yeah.
Just, that's not a position you need to find yourself in. And that felt... I felt to me at that point like Mosquera's day, the clock was ticking on him. Like he wasn't going to be able to finish because at some point you have to take him off before he ends up doing something, or before being on the yellow prevents him from playing as well as he did. I thought he actually picked up and he did fine the rest of the way, but oof.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, when we scored that leveler, I turned to my son who I was watching with and I said, we just might win this. But then into the second half, when Erling Haaland got the ball at his feet and did what he does, I mean, honestly, I haven't seen that many Erling Haaland goals in my time watching Arsenal. We generally do a pretty good job containing him. He hasn't been super effective against us, but man.
He's been very quiet in 2026. Like I think he only has like 4 goals, they said, since the turn of the calendar now.
Okay.
But there are a number of things that frustrate me about this goal. But the first was it came on the back of us having some of the best possession and some of the best opportunities of the game. Because this is when we have that play. Havertz, Odegaard makes a good pass to Havertz. Donnarumma makes a good save. He's able to get in position to make us. I don't think he made the save, but certainly caused Martinelli to kind of double clutch on the shot and allowed the defenders to get back. And then we had the one Eze just turns around and rifles it off the post and just so close.
But inside edge of the post. Yeah.
That's the one you're kind of looking at going, okay. Like this is how you build, this is how we go. And then you can almost see it happening. Odegaard triggers a press. Martinelli doesn't track the guy who runs. And they get a free run into our area. I'm not throwing this one on Martinelli because he's, there are a couple of things happened after that, but it's not a good start. It allows them to get the run in and the ball gets its way to Haaland, who, let's be honest, was pulling on Gabriel's shirt. You can see you can watch the video. There are pictures. This is not, he's pulling on Gabriel's shirt, gets in a position and he finishes. And it just had to be, didn't it? It just had to be.
Yeah. It's frustrating. But credit, I mean, regardless of how he got into that position to like hit that shot falling to the ground and place it where it needed to go, like it was a good shot. I wish it didn't result from an uncalled offensive foul.
He's a finisher. And I won't go so far as to say uncalled offensive foul, although it is fair to point out that there are certain players who are able to get away with that sort of thing, and certain players who don't. But it's he's a goal scorer. Like, he gets those kind of opportunities. It was at least the second one he had in the game I could think of. You give him enough of those, he's going to bury them, and it's hard, right? Because as a defender, you have to be right. Oh, it feels like you have to be right every time, whereas he only has to be right one time, and there you go.
Yeah.
But still, I think at that point, I still think, 65 minutes, there was enough time for us. All we needed was another goal. Which, again, we'll just go back to Haaland really quick. Obviously, shortly afterwards, we get into another little shirt tussle there, and of course, Haaland's shirt gets torn off.
Yeah, that was. I mean, let me just say, it was really fun seeing the replays of him like yelling at the referee, just seeing angry Haaland. I liked seeing angry Haaland. I like knowing that Gabriel got to him. But yeah,
I mean, he and Gabriel go at each other. They're two physical players. They're strong guys. They like playing physically.
Almost as tall as each other. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and is Gabriel pulling on his shirt? Sure. Just like Haaland is pulling on they're just the whole game is them going back and forth. And okay, fine, the shirt gets torn, but like this is what's happening the whole game, and it's not getting called. I mean, again, I could be critical of Taylor in some instances or some ways, but like that, the way you've called the game to that point, you're not calling the shirt tugs. Well, then you can't call the shirt tug.
Right.
And they kind of went back and forth on each other. And, the counter argument to that maybe is that you needed to call something perhaps even a little earlier, because arguably it boils over, what was that, about 15 minutes later.
Right.
I'll say this. Gabriel is somewhat lucky to have not picked up a red in that instance.
Yeah.
But having said that, like, let's not pretend that Haaland doesn't instigate the contact. He leans his head forward. He's like...
Right, he's the one who puts his head up against Gabriel first.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where and again, some of this is outside narrative, and we kind of have to channel Eza and say I don't care what other people think, but it is frustrating to sort of watch this all go on, and now the post-game conversation is, well, maybe Gabriel should have had a red card. No, honestly, I thought this was absolutely the right call. Like, pull him out, separate them. You're both doing this. Probably should have been given the card 10, 15 minutes earlier, but it's clear you're both doing this. It's time it's gone too far. And of course Guardiola was complaining about it. So,
yeah, he got the yellow card after they got their yellow cards. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because he's shouting about all that's going on. Yeah, it's just,
in fairness regarding the possibility of a red card, like, calling that particularly a headbutt, like, I don't think that would have stood up to VAR scrutiny, probably.
Oh, no, that's exactly the kind of thing VAR would call, because they don't need the headbutt to be like full on Zidane, right into the guy's chest. I mean, Gabriel pushes his head forward. If Haaland pulls back at all and Gabriel ends up like first of all, don't do that. Like, headbutting people is kind of dumb. Just,
right.
Like, in general, for the safety of your actual head and face.
Yeah.
But no, if he comes we've seen cards for that. We've seen red cards for that. Guy pushed his head forward into someone. That's a red.
But what's different to me, their heads were already in contact. It was like a head shove, not a head butt,
Again, I think it's being blown slightly out of proportion because of that. And again, it's Gabriel the villain against poor innocent Erling Haaland, and imagine me making an offensive gesture in response to that.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. I don't mind that in general, because I think that's a lot of ways the game we wanted to play. We wanted it to be physical. We wanted it to be mucky and dirty and kind of down in the gutter, because that was kind of where we were going to be more successful. It's just, we can look at the substitutions in this game. I mean, honestly, I think one of the strangest things about the whole game, we didn't really talk about this in prep, but we got a full 90 minutes out of Odegaard. What did you think of Odegaard today?
It's good having him back. I mean, you can definitely tell the difference when he's on the pitch, just kind of holding things together more, basically.
I was surprised he went the full 90
Yeah.
minutes. I was.
When they were prepping to bring on the subs, I did think that would be when they took him off and they kept him on. They brought off Eza instead.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is Ez's less strong defensively, which is kind of an interesting call to make, given that we're at the point we kind of need the goal. But he had been a little soft. I mean, he had some great dribbles, some spins, some turns, but there were a couple of times they ended up with some giveaways, including some giveaways like you got to run through the guy. I mean, you got to push through. You got to try to, you gave it up just a little cheaply there. Yeah, Odegaard I think was a little loose with the ball. I'm just surprised he put on. He does a lot for us. I don't know. I thought he was. Yeah, because I'm just trying to think of the subs. I mean, we brought on Gyökeres. Didn't really do a whole lot. I mean, we brought on Ben White, who was okay. Trossard was probably the best of the subs that came on.
Well, yeah, he made that cross to Havertz.
I mean, incredible cross, and Havertz. Yeah. And I mean, what do you say that I mean, Havertz knows. I thought Havertz had a decent game. Obviously, he creates the goal, but he wants that one back. I don't know.
No, definitely. It was disappointing. But yeah, getting back to Odegaard, I didn't notice anything. Let me put it that way. Like, it seemed like he was doing what he usually does. I didn't see him making the giveaways. I saw a lot of giveaways in general. I think we gave up the ball way too easily. You can see it in the possession stats. Like we had like half as much possession as they did.
Yeah. But again, it kind of goes into sort of the fine margins here, because City are going to look at this game and sort of feel about they missed some chances, had some bad giveaways as well. Obviously, they're going to be a little concerned with some of the transition plays that led to our opportunities where we create some chances and hit the post, or Donnarumma has to make the save. I mean, they're going to come away with some things that they would theoretically want to work on. Although I think what's true for us is also true for them. I think we're the best team either of us is going to see the rest of the way. Certainly in the league we are. I mean, I guess it depends a little bit on what you think about Bayern or PSG in a potential Champions League final, or Atletico Madrid.
Right.
It really does feel like in a lot of ways this came down to some really fine margins. They got one or two balls in the right place, and we got one or two of ours that just didn't quite make it. And it's frustrating because it doesn't. Again, deserve has nothing to do with it, but it feels like a draw would have been a deserved result. And it's still sort of processing a little bit, just being in that position, being in the position where. Being in this position throughout the day, I'm having trouble articulating my thoughts because I'm still a little emotional about it. Just this was a tough one.
I definitely went through a brief flash of wanting to like throw my Arsenal jerseys in a heap and start a bonfire. I am not beyond getting frustrated. Like I was definitely there. I've talked myself down a little bit, but yeah, it's if we do end up not going all the way this season, like I think you have to look back to Bournemouth last week as the real deciding factor, even more than this one. But this one definitely hurts.
I mean, we could point to a lot of games, honestly. I mean, the loss at home to United, dropping points against Wolves. I mean, and the other thing too is, I mean, honestly, if you want to look at a big moment in the season, it's in the January window when City picks up, Semenyo and Mark Gahey.
I forgot that Gahey was new too.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't generally get into too much of the money stuff here because it is what it is. They have a lot of money and they spend it, and to their credit, they spent it wisely. Those are two really good players, and they're able to generate that kind of thing. I mean, it feels so hollow to say it because it kind of is hollow to say it, but I mean, given what we've been dealing with injury-wise, like we talked about the depth we have, we've been using all of it all season. Like it hasn't really. We haven't really been in a position where we can truly rotate the way we want, and we've been using that depth. And the fact that in all of that, we could still be on top of the league, which we are. Let's be clear, we are still on top of the league for the time being, and into the semifinals of the Champions League, and having made the Carabao Cup final, and having made the quarterfinal, like to compete on all fronts the way we did, it says something, but it's kind of frustrating that we walked into this game with Odegaard, who's coming back for the first time in a couple of weeks, with missing Bukayo Saka, not having Jury and Timber. I mean, that's three. I mean, that's two players who are missing. Two really important players are missing. Not having Calafiori at left back. So
right.